Drive east along M55 from Blackpool towards Preston. We are travelling to Woodplumpton near Preston to investigate a witch and ghostly hauntings. Turn left at the Cottam exit and left onto the B5467, which is William Young Way with the petrol station on your right. Continue along the B5467 to turn left onto Sandy Lane. The turn left at the traffic lights continue along the B5411, which is Sandy Lane Way. And this takes you back over the M55. Follow Sandy Lane and a slight left into Woodplumpton Road. St Anne's Church will be on your left and the Wheatsheaf will be past the church on your right. This is just a bit of footage from a flight simulator overhead Woodplumpton. It was reported at the time that the Wheatsheaf Inn in Woodplumpton was said to be haunted by the spirit of Meg Shelton, a woman known as the Filed Hag, or Witch of Woodplumpton, who was accused of witchcraft. She was a poor beggar woman who survived mainly on haggis. Meg is famous for her shape-shifting skills, and apparently could change into a variety of animals. The Wheatsheaf Inn at Woodplumpton is always associated with ghostly tales of legendary witch Meg Shelton, who is buried in the nearby graveyard beneath a large boulder and reportedly seen haunting the highway. Meg Shelton, also known as the Filed Hag, was a woman from Woodplumpton who was accused of witchcraft and mischief, including stealing milk from cattle and transforming into animals. Alleged death. The story goes that Meg was killed when a barrel crushed her against a wall. The Wheatsheaf Inn and the Ghost. The Wheatsheaf Inn, a historic pub in Woodplumpton, is said to be haunted by Meg's spirit, with some claiming to have seen her ghostly apparition. Meg was often seen riding her broomstick at night. She could turn milk sour, lame cattle, and curse hogs. Local folklore. Media news reported that Woodplumpton has a rich history of folklore, including tales of witchcraft and punishment, with the village stocks and a pond used for ducking stools as evidence. Meg Stone. There is a place in Woodplumpton called Meg Stone, which is a location associated with Meg Shelton and the witch hunt. Modern novel. Other reports that a Preston-born author has published a novel that explores the myths around the Witch of Woodplumpton. Meg Shelton. The small village of Woodplumpton, just north of Preston on the eastern edge of the Fylde, is most famous in supernatural circles for being the home of Meg Shelton, the Fylde witch, who lies face down beneath a boulder in St Anne's Churchyard. In hindsight, it seems odd that a known witch would be put to rest on consecrated ground. Usually they were buried at a crossroad with no signposts, so they could not find their way home, or their bodies were burned. But the nearby pub also boasts its own resident ghost. At the Wheatsheaf, you can be guaranteed a friendly atmosphere and great beer, but an attempt to warm yourself by its cozy fire may prove to be a chilling experience. A photograph taken of the fireplace seems normal enough upon first glance, but closer inspection reveals what appears to be a young girl knelt by the grate, polishing the brass, although some speculate she may be praying or even nursing a baby. Could it be that Meg is not the only restless spirit in Woodplumpton? The village itself goes back to Saxon times and is recorded as Plunton in the Domesday Book, becoming Woodplumpton by 1336, so it's safe to assume that it could be home to several spectres. The ghostly photograph itself in question is on display in the bar. There's a large boulder by the side of the path in the churchyard of St Anne's in Woodplumpton. A small sign says it marks the grave of Meg Shelton, a local witch in the late 17th century. What follows are testimonials from different people who have visited Woodplumpton. Katie utting, when I first visited the grave, we had just come back from the Wheatsheaf after a Halloween party, and when my mum told me the story, I felt really sorry for her. You can't help the way you are born, whether you are a witch or a normal person. It's not fair on the poor woman. I think what the people did to her was very, very evil. Josh Burrows. I've recently been there with some friends, and as we walked past, I noticed my shoelace to be untied. I bent down to tie it and my friends carried on walking. I then stood up to see on the other side of the church wall a ghastly blue figure. Could this be Meg? Barry McCann. There have been rumors of Meg's ghost being sighted. One boy once ran out of the church claiming a haggard old woman had chased him. It was probably the cleaner, poor old soul. Incidentally, the pub opposite boasts resident ghost, along with its fine ales and grub. Sadly, the only spirits I have seen in there came out of the optics. John W. If you stand on the boulder and turn around 3 times, don't fall off, or Witch Meg will come and get you that night. Jan, South Africa. My great-grandmother was a farmer in Lancashire. She told us a story about Meg Shelton. She used to give Meg Shelton all the leftover pig slop till one winter. She did not have enough pig slop to give away. She told Meg Shelton that she would not have enough slop. The witch then asked to see the pigs. She walked around, touched each pig on the back with her stick, saying how fat they were, and that they should not eat too much. My great-grandmother then told everyone how her pigs stopped eating their slop from that day on. That she was sure Meg Shelton had cursed her farm. My family were glad at the death of Meg Shelton, the witch, and could get back to raising pigs with good appetite again. Mike Savage. I visited the grave last week, took some photographs. I've also read the chapter in Graham Dugdale's book, Walks in Mysterious Lancashire. Meg did live at one time in Cuckoo Cottage, Wesham, as well as at Catforth, according to Dugdale. It's amazing how people in the past were persecuted for being just a bit different from the norm. When I visited the grave, there was a small wreath of plastic flowers there. Gina, I live right next to that graveyard. If you go on Halloween on a full moon and walk around it 3 times, then run to the post box of the church, you see a monk. I recognize this. My friend's dad is the vicar at the church where this stone is. My friend had her party in the church hall, and then we all went outside and started messing around. Loads of us kept standing on this stone and were teasing each other, saying things like, "The witch'll get you, be careful." Annie from Ashton, Preston. I've only visited the grave once with my dad, as I have always been scared. He told me that when he was a boy, he and his friends would cycle up there and would run round the stone 3 times, then spit on it 3 times. They were told that if they did this, the witch would rise from her grave and get them. Of course they did it, but ran to hide behind the church. I have never done it, as I am really scared. Sammy, I've just gone to see the Meg stone today. I was told if you stand there for a while you can hear her groaning. Hellas, I went to visit Meg Shelton's gravestone, and my auntie said that she was buried twice faced upwards, but she scratched her way out. So the 3rd time she was knocked out and buried face down, and they put that boulder on top, just to make sure that she couldn't get out. Many women who were herbalists and midwives were considered a threat by male doctors. Calling them witches was a convenient way to get them out of the picture. If that was the case with Meg, then at least she is still remembered. I doubt the man who buried her is. Considering Meg lived in the 1600s when herbalists were considered witches, she may well have been a poor and sick lady. I feel that it's high time Meg Shelton's remains were given a civilized burial, despite a plaque and boulder being a curious tourist attraction. It makes me wonder who is sicker to keep her buried like that. Amy. When my grandma died, I always got this strange feeling whenever I walked up the stairs, as if someone was watching me or following me. And when my pet rabbit died, she died of shock. I always used to see her sat at the bottom of my bed watching me. It was well freaky. Stephanie, I live quite close to the church, and I always keep an eye on the witch's grave. And I also hear a rumor that Halloween she comes out at night, and you can see her. But I don't know if it is true. Dave Tierney. I lived in Ingle when I was younger, and on one cycle trip with friends we stopped at the witch's grave to take a look. An old fellow in the graveyard at the time told us if we walked around the grave 3 times and then declared, "I don't believe in witches," Meg Shelton's hand would appear and grab your leg. Out of the 4 of us, nobody went round more than twice. Colin and I went to school in Singleton at Singleton Hall, a boarding school for disabled children. I heard and read stories of Meg Shelton, that she pinched milk from the cows in the farmers' fields and took eggs from the hens. One day the miller from the village saw Meg in the field and chased her to the flour mill. On entering, found no one there. He looked around and saw his bags of flour and counted them. He knew he had 12 but counted 13, and so the story goes, he took a pitchfork and stuck it into every bag of flour, till he got to the 13th, and with a screech Meg turned back into herself and ran with her arm bleeding from the pitchfork wound. Folklore or truth? You decide. Dennis, I am from Suffolk, but my wife Dorothy is from Woodplumpton. She has told me about the witch who is known locally as Meg Shelton, or the Filed Witch. The story goes thus. A farmer caught the witch stealing corn from his barn. He set his dog on her. Now if she raced to her cottage in Catforth before the dog, she could stay in the cottage. The dog bit her on the heel as it chased her through the door. However, she stayed in the cottage, but always walked with a limp thereafter. Because Meg Shelton was deemed to be a witch, she was buried alive. She managed to get out, so they buried her face downwards and placed the stone on top of her burial place. She did not get out again. As a child, my wife carried out this ritual, handed down by her father, who did the same thing when he was a boy some 88 years ago. Walk around the grave 3 times and stand on the stone. Look to the north, then east, then south, then finally west. Make your wish. Now run around the church 3 times, and if you see the devil through the keyhole of the church door, run like merry hell. Most of these comments are reproduced in a book by Graham Dugdale of 1999, entitled Walks in Mysterious Lancashire. Public floggings and placement in the stocks were also regular market day events, and tales of dunking suspected witches in nearby ponds and rivers to see if they were guilty and floated. Innocent and drowned are part of local folklore. Thank you for watching. We trust that you have been entertained and that you will sleep tonight. Please like and subscribe. Feel free to make any comments, positive or negative. We try our best, and there will be many more videos in the coming month, so watch this space.